Hello, and welcome to another episode of Crossing Bridges Talk Show. I'm your host, Larry Montgomery Sr. This is my co host, Will. Will, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is William Montgomery, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and this week we have a special presentation that we've come up with. And the topic is child support. It's one thing to talk about, fatherlessness and its impact on the children and in the community as a whole. But you also got to talk about the economics of the situation. And this week's topic is child support, the premium for unprotected sex. It's a pun, you might get it later on. I
Yeah.
don't know. So um, I was expecting our field reporter to show up, but she ain't here. So I thought maybe she had done some research on the topic and maybe had done a few interviews and she'd be able to bring that to us, but you know, and that didn't happen. But anyway, hope still, you know. So why do we need to have a child support order? And it's an order because it's a legal situation now. Yes, you would think that because the child was born, that the father would first off had been involved, from conception, as far as going to doctor visits and rubbing bellies and making people feel good, about what's rubbing their feet and stuff like that there. But for whatever reason, they may not have been available or around. Then it comes to the part of okay, they go to the hospital. The woman, she's ready to give birth, and the baby daddy ain't there. Okay, now we have the birth, and then baby daddy still don't show up, to sign the birth certificate. Whatever the drama might be, um, the father is not participating in the process. And so, if they're not coming to see the child, the likelihood of them spending any money in support of the child is nil. Not paying for any diapers, any milk, any rent, any heat, all those things that go along with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not the child's fault. And if it was the child's fault, the child's too young to do anything about it for themselves. So they're relying on the mother and the father to take care of that. Oh, the mother's rich. She can take care of it. Uh, Even if she was rich, it's still not all only her responsibility to take care of the child. You know, we as men have a responsibility there too. We've had these conversations over the time that we've been doing this show. So yeah, now because hold on, Kimmy's not going to be able to make it, so it's kind of at least she responded. Okay. So anyway, now because the father is not stepping up to the plate, and there may be reasons why the father's not stepping up to the plate. Obviously, you don't believe that he is for whatever reason. We've had those conversations, and they have the Maury show that really delves into that for those of you who want to know more about that and how that works. So now the mother, in order to encourage the father to support the child financially, they have to go to court. And that's a whole process within itself. And so we were thinking to just kind of go over some of the things that they're going to have to face in doing that. And so, again, the first question is, and these are frequently asked questions about child support. Why do we need to have a child support order? Your child has a legal right to financial support from both parents. Each parent has a legal responsibility to support his or her child. Number two, what if the child's mother has filed for child support, but I don't think I am the father, which is something that rarely comes up, I'm sure. In most cases, the judge will allow you to have a paternity test if you ask for one. If you ask for one, the judge will decide who pays for the test. The judge will decide who pays for it. If the court, when someone is filed for a support case, the court might require them to pay for the test initially, but then might later require them, let me see if I got this right here, might later require you to pay for the test if you are found to be the father. So you can pay for it, and I guess if you're not the father, that's one conversation. You pay for the test and you are the father, it's pretty much, done deal. If the mother is the one who filed for support, the court might order her to pay the cost or might divide the cost between the two. Comment?
Oh no,
No, no, no. You don't have any war stories on that.
no. Unfortunately, I've never been taken to court for child support. My daughter, I was paying child support from the time she was born, even though we later got married. I was still continued paying child support. So yeah.
Oh, I didn't need you to. Didn't mean you had to put your business out in the
Hey,
street.
I mean, we're talking, you know.
Okay. Now, where am I at? Oh, how do I know that the amount of the child support order is fair? Good question. The law wants the amount of child support to be fair. Factors that help decide what is fair include where the child lives most of the time, the income of both parents, the cost of the child's daycare and health care, each parent's other child support obligations, and the age and number of children in the case. So I guess the court is going to want to get a full picture of the situation. It's easy to say, as a single man with only responsible for themselves, that I can't afford to pay child support because every dime I get, I spent on me and my obligations. And now this woman is here with this child asking me to support a child that I don't want to support. Now, we don't have a conversation about the fact that you laid down with her and did not have protection and she got pregnant. We beyond that conversation. We here in the new reality. A lot of guys will come up with the argument that, well, she was sleeping around. Well, I mean, that's like a double-edged sword because if she was sleeping around and you knew it, why did you sleep with her? She was just promiscuous and it was okay for you to sleep with her. Now, she pregnant, had a baby, and you standing there talking about what ain't mine, must be somebody else's. Now, of course, if that shoe was on your father's foot when you came along and your father was standing there talking about ain't mine and I ain't paying for somebody else's baby, you might have a different opinion about that when your child comes along. Now, the fact that there's a question that maybe who the paternity of the child is, okay, that might be a legitimate question. Got nothing to do with the reality of you had 9 months to work through this process and to understand what was going to happen based on historical information. When a child comes into this world, what happens? Somebody got to have a place for it to live. So even Christ, when he was born, they got to use the manger because the hotel was booked. You think they let him stay in the manger for free? That's where the animals stayed. Okay. So here in the U.S., we don't have mangers. So yeah, the child's gonna have to stay somewhere with someone and be fed and all and on and on and on. Okay. Let's go on to the next question. Frequently asked. And this is a person asking the question. I really don't know anything about the other parent's income. Okay. You can ask the judge. You can ask the judge to order the other parent to bring proof of his or her income to court. Proof might include pay stubs, W 2 forms, or tax returns, which is interesting because some people don't really respect the court. They might come in with, some nonsense that is not necessarily true or old or whatever. And so there's nothing wrong with you also bringing any other evidence of the individual's financial position, such as the kind of car they drive. Picture of them getting out of their car. Picture of their apartment building, to get some sense of where they live. They're living at home with their parents. Is one thing. They might be paying rent. They might not be paying rent. I don't know. Whole other conversation there. So yes.
I think that's a, a lot of speculation right there because the court, they have to deal with facts. They can subpoena his work, his taxes and stuff like that, or they can, they can definitely see his tax returns and stuff like that if he's working a legitimate job. But the problem is, some people don't have a legitimate job; they're not paying taxes, so there's no way to verify their income. But but for conversation's sake, we're going based off of the optimal circumstances where there is a guy that's involved and he is contesting the birth, because some people go to court and they're just ordered to pay child support and the man doesn't even know, and then next thing you know, years later, he has all this back child support that he owes and he has to defend himself. So
well, speculation, common sense, depends on who's talking about it. But court's going to order them if you ask the court to assure that they're going to bring their financial information. And again, if they're not working a legitimate job, they're hustling, they got a good hustle going on there, whatever that might be. You, if you bring photos, it does give the court some indication of what the financial position of the person is. Sure, yeah, I'm riding around in this Cadillac, brand new, but it's not mine. I borrowed it from my friend, but the picture includes the license plate. Pull up the auto record, send your name. Now what? How do you afford the insurance? However you got the car, you could have found it. Okay, yeah, it's brand new, but somebody paying the insurance on the car. If you're not paying insurance on the car, different kind of conversation. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think that's kind of hard to prove too, because some people, they'll buy a vehicle and put in their mother's name, so it's their mother's car technically by law, but they're driving it because they paid for it. So I mean, like I said, we're talking about optimal circumstances where this stuff fits. I'm just saying this because some people generalize and think that that's how everything is, and it's like there's some things that doesn't work well with.
Well, let's go on. What are the child support guidelines? The amount of money, no, the amount of child support is usually determined by the support guidelines, which means that everyone in the exact same financial and custodial situation as you may be pay or receive the same amount of child support. Now, there is a child support guideline calculator online. Yes? Oh, that's Charlie. Okay. Power to the puppy people. Okay. Back to the child support guideline amount can be adjusted up or down if the child has extraordinary expenses such as medical care, special schooling, or the parent has extraordinary needs like medical care. Something went wrong during the birth or whatever. Next question. What if we share custody? If a child spends 35% or more of his or her time with each parent or guardian, there is a presumption that the parties have shared physical custody of the child. This will be taken into account by the child support guideline calculator. If your incomes are about the same and the child spends about the same amount of time, excuse me, with each of you, probably neither of you will pay or receive child support. Now that's very interesting. You know, that's interesting. So, but you are, participating with the child,
Mhm.
and you are sharing in whatever cost it is to raise the child. So yeah, and you're making about the same money. So then, okay, kind of washes out. Well, let me go on. Okay. Um, what if the other parent is not paying what the court ordered? The parent is still entitled to visit the child according to the court order. You can file a motion for contempt for child support order asking the court to make him or her pay. Um, I guess it would be easier if you had an attorney, to work through all of these things, but it's not something that's impossible that you cannot, do on your own as far as preparing the documents for court.
Well,
Yeah.
um, if a person is ordered to pay child support and they don't pay their child support, um, like say a female goes to Child Protective Services, or as they say, put the man on papers. Um, the state comes out. The state gives the woman some money, and then they go after the husband or the father for the money. And as he falls behind, uh, then he's subject to going to jail in a lot of places. So they're going to get their money by hook or by crook.
Yeah. You put that so politely. We're going to get to that question soon. Okay. Where was I at? Now, here's a question. What if I don't want to pay the child support that the court ordered? You are still entitled to visit your child according to the court order. You must continue to pay what the court ordered until the court changes its order. If you do not pay what the court ordered, the judge could fine you in contempt for disobeying its order and might order you to pay a fine, spend time in jail, and or have your wages garnished. Yeah. How do you change the child support order? You can file a motion to modify the child support order if your if you or the other parent's financial circumstances have changed. This motion can be to increase the child support, decrease the child support, suspend child support. For example, if you were temporarily laid off, or even terminate child support. Okay, you have to file a motion for that. If the judge grants your request, the change will only take effect back to the date you filed the motion, not back to the date the change occurred. It is important to file a motion to modify right away if there is a change in your circumstances.
Um, Can I say something? Because this sounds a little bit like a divorce situation, because most people that have children that haven't been married, I don't believe they go to the court. You know, when you go through a divorce, they have to establish paternity. They have to establish, and like if you're married and you have children, then you get ordered to pay child support. But I don't think anybody that's not in wedlock is ordered to pay by the courts. Is child protective services come in, the lady says, "Hey, he's the father," and then they go after him, and there's no court involved unless you want to fight it, and then now you got to get a lawyer and fight the case and say, "Hey, no, I'm not the dad," this, that, and the other, so forth and so on. But most child support is done with, as far as court ordered, it's usually like with a divorce.
I think you kind of confused me.
Okay.
If you impregnated the woman and and for whatever reason, don't earnestly believe that your child is yours because of whatever promiscuity or whatever, or if you're just dead set on, I don't want any more children, I don't want to pay for this or whatever, um, if she takes you to court to get you to pay child support, then you're in court. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't always go to court. If she goes to Child Protective Services and say, "Hey, this is the father. He abandoned it," you know, the state will come after you, and it's on you to prove that you're not that guy.
Well, see, in that case, you kind of skip over the initial conversation we had as far as who's going to pay for the pregnancy test. Because if the state is coming after you because you don't, you not paying child support or not supporting the child, whatever, and the mother doesn't go to court, however the process might be to accuse you of abandoning the child, and they send agents out to get you, the paternity is just assumed that you are the father. Now, you want to prove that you're not the father, it's on you to get the paternity test. That comes out of your pocket. So there's no option for sharing or no option for, well, she pays for it because she makes more money than you. That kind of conversation. See what I'm saying?
I mean, but I'm just saying, like, 9 times out of 10, the court is involved when you're married and you're getting a divorce, and you go for child support through the courts, because Ray Ray and Pookie on the side of the street, he probably ain't going to go into a court no matter what, and then therefore the judgment is going to be against him no matter what, because he's not going to court.
Well, you don't have to go to court.
That's what I'm saying.
Because
Like,
if the woman files a case against you for child
mhm,
support and you don't show up,
yeah,
let me help you out with that. You're the father.
that's what the court's going to say, because you're
Yeah,
not there to defend yourself.
right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the
And
woman can go in.
and the court is going to determine what you should pay in child support. Now there are guidelines, yes, and the court will normally follow those, depending on the case that the female, makes. Because the court said, well, look, one child is, the woman's going to explain, well, this is the lifestyle we have. We're living in poverty. We live in the projects, and we have, food stamps like that there. Court's going to say, well, the father should be paying X dollars. It ain't about the percentage of your income then. It's about the dollars that the court has decided that you should pay because she's on welfare. So welfare is, like you said, is already throwing money on the table for her. But that's based on the public, um, public assistance guidelines.
Mhm.
That's not based on the reality of what the actual mother is facing. Okay. So it's better for you to show up to court and deal with it than not show up and face the consequences.
Well, I mean, some people, they already spoke to their woman, and they're paying child support without a court order. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to go to court to get child support, but that's
Well,
why
if they have decided to go on and pay, you know, and the mother is satisfied with what's being paid, there's no complaint.
and that's another thing, because I've heard of a case. There was a young lady getting a substantial amount of money from her baby father, in the amount of about $1,500 a month, but she wasn't happy with it because one of her friends told her that she could get more. So she took him to child support, put him on child support, and she wound up getting 500 instead of that 1,500. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like I said, they have the child support calculator online, so you can go in there and calculate. Assuming you have all the information that you need to make the calculation. She may have known that before she went through the trouble of, filing a claim against them. Uh, if not, hey, you know, $1,500 a month may not be, you may not be a millionaire, but if it's paying those bills and taking care of your situation, you might want to think again before you know, go that extra mile. Let me see if there's a couple more points here. Um, Here, I guess, is the father asking, what if I have a lot of bills? The child support guidelines takes into account the cost of living. High monthly expenses or debts will not generally reduce the amount of support your children are entitled to. The court will consider if you have extraordinary medical bills. The child support guidelines does take into account the children's daycare and health insurance expenses, so you can bring proof of these expenses to court with you. Now, I don't want to gloss over the cost of daycare. That's an expense that is becoming a fixture in the household. That's an expense that is constantly going up because the demand is such. So you're working, the mother's trying to work, to live whatever kind of life you're trying to live wherever you're at. And daycare is going to take a crunch out of that money, you know. I mean, but if you're participating, meaning that you come and you do the daycare, you
Mm-hmm.
know, so you share that. You work at night, she works in the day, so you work, you come home, you watch the kid, or whatever, how you work that out.
Mm-hmm.
But that and medical costs, those things, man, they be taking a bite out of your budget. You know? And the last thing you want to do is have a child and not have health insurance. Kids get sick, things happen. You could get sick, things happen, you know, and they want that money. You don't care what your situation is. Doctor wants to get paid, hospital wants to get paid. Said so. All right. What's next? Let's see. What if the other parent earns less than, here's a number for you, $14,856 per year? The court will usually order the parent to pay $50 per month. You can't live off of Happy Meals for a month for less than $200. So now this kid is going to be eating food or drinking milk for a whole month that you only spent $50 and Pampers and wipes and clothes and heat and rent, you know, for $50. I, I mean, if your situation is like that, yeah, you should have really gave a lot of thought to having a child
I mean,
before you had it. You know,
you got some people getting pregnant at 15, 16 years old. So, if you're working at McDonald's after school, some people have to drop out of school, for these things. The people don't take into account the financial responsibility. They think about the enjoyment, having fun and enjoying life. But, we're having these conversations to point out the issues of the financial responsibility, the medical responsibility, the living responsibility that a lot of people don't take into account. And
Right?
they don't have this information before they know what the opposite sex looks like.
Yep. Okay. Okay, here we go. Now we talked about how much money you could make and an example. What if the other person is incarcerated? The court will usually order no child support until that parent is released. I was ordered to pay child support a few years ago, but now the children are living with me. Can I stop paying? Before we get that answer, I'm going to get back to the parent being incarcerated. Even if you're incarcerated, no, you're not ordered to pay child support, but it continues to accumulate. Money got to come from somewhere, and you owe. So, all right, you're not making any money. That don't mean the child still wasn't eating while you were incarcerated. You know, that don't mean they didn't have a roof over their head. You know, hopefully they had a roof and not they weren't sleeping in the car, type thing. Even that's an expense. You know, so yeah. All right, let me go back to that last question. I was ordered to pay child support for a few years, but now the children are living with me. Can I stop paying? You can stop paying after you have a court order telling you that you may stop. You can file a motion to terminate child support or a motion to modify the child support, explaining to the court how the circumstances have changed. You should do this as soon as possible because the change will only take effect back to the date you filed the motion, not back to the date the change occurred. What if the court records show that I owe more money than I think I do? You can bring your receipts and records of payments to court and ask to speak to a supervisor. You could also request an audit of your child support account and or talk to a lawyer about that problem. Next question. I am paying my child support into the court as the judge ordered, but sometimes the other parent needed money right away, so I gave him or her some. Can I get a credit on my account for that? That's a good question. The answer, usually not. If you are paying into the court, any money you give directly to the other parent will be considered a gift. If the other parent signs and files an affidavit telling the court that he or she received the support payment directly from you, the court will probably give you credit.
Well, the thing about it is you have to have some proof. It's not only on her because most people are not going to go and do you a favor, especially if they put you on child support. If you pay, additional money to the mother or the father, whoever has custody, and you get cash, you're pretty much throwing that money. I mean, it sounds bad, but you're pretty much throwing that money away because, they're going to use it. Don't get me wrong, but you're not able to track cash. So if you give a money order that you put on there, hey, this is for child support, emergency request, child needed shoes or whatever. You need to have some type of documentation that you gave this money to the individual, because when you go into court, you can say, hey, I sent this money to her. She could say no, or he could say no. It's your word against theirs. If you don't have that receipt or something showing that you, or a check, a cashier's check that's paid to her, and they can see that transaction, that money is theirs.
Yeah,
Gift.
Yep. Um, again, it goes back to the question of if this is the kind of relationship you're facing, you really should have vetted that person before you laid down with them. You know, because it's all about money. It's all about money. It's only all about money because you got yourself involved in a situation that came up with a child.
Uh,
You know, had you not come up with the child, we wouldn't be having a conversation about money.
I,
Yeah.
I disagree slightly with that. I mean, sometimes it's about money, but sometimes it's about power and, an individual trying to hurt the individual because, it's just sometimes child support is used as a weapon, not as a necessity. If you need it, you need it. But some people are like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this just because I can do it.
Well, you use the word. I think you use the word necessity. We started the conversation, and I said the child is entitled to support from both parents.
Yeah, but you
So
have somebody giving money.
it's not one parent's earning $100,000 a year and the other one is getting by on $15,000 a year. Well, who can afford it?
You're
No, that's not the
misunderstanding what
question.
I'm saying. If I'm sending money to you, but I'm giving you cash, and just because you want to hurt me, you turn around and put me on papers, and I have no history or no receipt saying that I gave you this cash for all these years. You put me on child support. Now I'm looking at going to jail. That is not a necessity. That is, you're trying to weaponize that against me, is what I'm saying.
Well, I understand that the motive is whatever the motive may be, is the motive that may be. That doesn't negate and it doesn't obfuscate the fact that the child is entitled to financial support from both parents.
But I'm saying
You know,
if you're giving that money and the person says, well, hey, he doesn't have any receipts saying that he gave me this cash. You see what I'm saying? That's
I,
where it can be weaponized. So I'm saying this because people need to protect themselves from situations. If you're in a relationship with somebody that is out to get you, not necessarily to benefit your child because you're there for your child as you should be, but you have a hostile person that you're dealing with, you need to protect yourself by making sure that all your transactions are documented, is what I'm
well,
saying.
I certainly agree with that. And just to make it a little clearer, we talk about documenting. It needs to be documented to the extent that it's clear to the average person
Mm-hmm.
that you gave and they got it.
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, if you give them a check, that's kind of clear. You wrote their name on it, and then they took it and cashed it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they got a friend to take it off their hands and give them cash, and their friend's name shows up on the check, it's a conversation. But the point is that the check was made out to the person who was supposed to get the money. Okay, having a receipt for toys or something like that. There, go on.
But the check is not the important thing. It's the when that money is coming out of your check, out of your account. That's the thing, because you can give somebody a check and they don't cash it. So, you have to be wise, like, oh, well, they could just be collecting all the checks and say, you never pay me anything. And then you look in your account and none of that money was withdrawn. You still owe that person all that money. So you have to give them a check. If it's a money order, that money's already came out. If it's a check, you have to make sure it's been withdrawn from your account for you to legitimately say that that person received the money.
Okay. Um, let's see now. Okay. Where can I find other? No, I don't go there. Where do I file? No, no. Okay. Okay. Well, that's pretty much what I have. And I did reduce them to 3-minute videos, so that we'll plug that in later on.
Okay.
Right now, unless you have any final comments, you can give your invitation.
Okay. Well, At this time, we would like to extend the opportunity for our viewers to recommend topics for us to discuss. If you'd like to be a part of the panel, please hit us up in the comment section, also with the topics you would like us to discuss.
Thank you. And that'll be it for this show. Join us again next week. And we'll see you again next week, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
And the creek don't rise.